Hey, Jill here. I'm working on Esther 2 and thought I'd read it, see how it goes. So they're telling the king, servants are telling the king that he should have some women brought to him and he can pick out who will be the next queen. This is Esther 2:4. This thing pleased the king and he did so. That's a great idea. I'll do it. The king and his servants. In Shushan, the citadel, there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai. Mordecai the Jew. Esther 2:5. Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, I'm not sure how to say it, the son of Kish, a Benjamite. So Mordecai's father, Shimei, Jair is Mordecai's father. Shimei is Jair's father. Kish is Shimei's father, and he's a Benjamite from the tribe of Benjamin. So let's read again. This thing pleased the Lord, and he did so. In Shushan, this thing pleased the king, and he did so. I don't know if it pleased the Lord, but this thing pleased the king, and he did so. In Shushan the citadel, there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai. Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite. Kish had been carried, Esther 2:6. Kish had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captives who had been captured with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away. So here are captives: Jeconiah, the king of Judah, and here's some captives, and we'll say this is Kish. King Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, exiles them from Jerusalem. Kish, Mordecai's great-grandfather, was taken captive and exiled to Babylon. Let's read that again. Kish had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captives who had been captured with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away. Esther 2:7. And Mordecai had brought up Hadassah, that is Esther. And Mordecai had brought up Hadassah, that is Esther. So Mordecai raised Hadassah, also known as Esther. Esther grew up with Mordecai, his uncle's daughter. So Mordecai was his uncle, probably the brother of his mom or dad, his parents. His uncle's daughter. So Esther's father was Mordecai's uncle. Mordecai and Esther were cousins. And I have a feeling Mordecai was much older than Esther since he adopted her, for she had neither father nor mother. She was an orphan. No mother, no father. Esther was an orphan. And Mordecai had brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother, by herself. Esther 2:7. The young woman was lovely and beautiful. Lovely and beautiful, Esther. When her father and mother died, Esther's parents died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. Esther became Mordecai's daughter, or Mordecai adopted Esther. The young woman was lovely and beautiful. When her father and mother died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. Esther 2:8. So it was, when the king's command and decree were heard, all the women are going to go visit the king, and he will choose a queen. So it was, when the king's command and decree were heard, and when many young women were gathered at Shushan, the citadel, under the custody of Haggai took care of the women. And when many young women were gathered at Shushan, the citadel, under the custody of Hegai, that Esther was also taken to the king's palace into the care of Hegai, the custodian of the women. So all the women, young women, virgins, are taken to the palace with Hegai watching over them. And Esther was taken. Esther 2:9. Now the young woman pleased him. So Esther, the king was pleased with Esther, and she obtained his favor. He liked her. She was a favorite. The king's favor went to Esther. So he readily gave beauty preparations to her. Esther receives beauty preparations besides her allowance. Esther regularly receives money and supplies. So now the young woman pleased him, and she obtained his favor. So he readily gave beauty preparations besides her allowance. So he readily gave beauty preparations to her besides her allowance. So she's getting a lot of nice things. Esther 2:9. Then 7 choice maidservants were provided for her from the king's palace. So 7 maidservants were given for Esther. Then 7 choice maids, the 7 best maidservants. Then 7 choice maidservants were provided for her from the king's palace. And he moved her and her maidservants. So they're all moving to the best place in the house of the women. So they all went to the best place in the house of women. Of the women. Let me write that in there. Sorry. Got to change that. The house of the women. Then 7 choice maidservants were provided for them. Then 7 choice maidservants were provided for her from the king's palace. And he moved her and her maidservants to the best place in the house of the women. So all 8 of them are going to the best place in the house of the women. Esther 2:10. Esther had not revealed her people or family. My family is Jewish. No, Esther didn't tell anyone about her family roots. Esther didn't tell anybody this. For Mordecai had charged her not to reveal it. Shh, don't tell anyone you're Jewish. It's a secret. Esther had not revealed her people or family, for Mordecai had charged her not to reveal it. And every day, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And every day, need to change that, I think, combine it. Esther 2:11. And every day Mordecai paced in front of the court of the women's quarters, the women's room. Every day Mordecai walked back and forth. Mordecai paced in front of the court of the women's quarters to learn of Esther's welfare. Walking back and forth. How is she doing? What's Esther's welfare? She paced in front of the court of the women. He paced in front of the court of the women's quarters where Esther was, to learn of Esther's welfare and what was happening to her. How is Esther? So somebody must be telling him, I guess. Mordecai paced in front of the court of the women's quarters to learn of Esther's welfare and what was happening to her. Esther 2:12. Each young woman's turn came. Her turn. I guess I'll say first, second, third. First. She goes first. She goes second. She goes third. She'll go fourth. Each young woman's turn came to go to King Ahasuerus. After she had completed 12 months of preparation. 12 months of some kind of beauty preparations. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December. 12 months of preparations. Each young woman's turn came to go into King Ahasuerus, or King Xerxes, I think, after she had completed 12 months of preparations. Esther 2:12, according to the regulations of the women. The regulations, rules for women. For thus were the days of their preparation apportioned, 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with perfumes and preparations for beautifying women. So according to the regulations of the women, for thus were the days of their preparation apportioned, put into sections. 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months, it's hard to say, months, 6 months with perfumes and preparations for beautifying women. So the preparation was 12 months, 6 months with oil of myrrh, 6 months with perfumes and preparations. Esther 2:13. Thus prepared, each young woman went to the king, and she was given whatever she desired to take with her from the women's quarters to the king's palace. So to the king's palace she goes. She took whatever she wanted from the women's quarters, the women's room. Thus prepared, each young woman went to the king, and she was given whatever she desired to take with her from the women's quarters to the king's palace. In the evening she went in, she's got her things, and in the morning she returned. She returned in the morning. Esther 2:14. So she returned, each woman returned to the second house of the women, to the custody of Shazgaz, I don't know, the king's eunuch who kept the concubines. Second house of the women, Shazgaz, took care of the women. She would not go into the king again. She would not go into the king again. That was one time. Sorry, I got the papers tangled up, messed up. She went back to the second house of the women, to the custody of Shazgaz, the king's eunuch who kept the concubines. She would not go into the king again. She would not go into the king again. This time I had little backpacks for the women. She would not go into the king again unless the king delighted her in her, unless he liked her. She wouldn't go into the king again unless the king delighted in her and called for her by name. Come here, Esther, or whoever. So this is getting kind of long. Let's read 1 or 2 more pages. Esther 2:15. Now when the turn came for Esther, it's Esther's turn, the daughter of Abihail. Abihail was her father, the uncle of Mordecai. So Abihail's the father of Esther. Abihail is the uncle of Mordecai. So Esther and Mordecai are cousins. Now when the turn came for Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her as his daughter. Mordecai and Esther are father and daughter. He says daughter, she says father, he adopts her. Esther 2:15. So it's Esther's turn to go into the king. Esther is next to go into the king. She requested, can I have that? She requested nothing but what Hegai, the king's eunuch, the custodian of the women, advised. So Esther and the king's servant, Hegai. So Hegai gives her some advice. Let me give you some advice on what to bring when you go in to see the king. So Esther only brought the things that Hegai advised her to bring. So it's Esther's turn to go into the king. She requested nothing but what Hegai, the king's eunuch, the custodian of the women, advised. Okay, have a good, blessed day.